I discussed what was learned in Friday's gameplay walkthrough and some tweets afterwards. Hello, my name is Jennifer and welcome to my Sims 4 news video. So here was the agenda of what they covered in the walkthrough. Create a sim, build by mode, world map, and live mode. And there was also some information about things that were going to be coming in the base game update next week, and some information from some tweets that came after the live stream. So to start with, they showed the Create a Sim items, which showed everything essentially for male and female Sims, essentially teen and up. And then they showed some items for infants, toddlers, and children, though they used a female Sim. Though you could see that some of the items were for male Sims, but of course, as usual, there were more things for the female Sims than there were for the male Sims. But there were some items that I could see me using both for the male and the female Sims. They also went over the 4 new aspirations. So there is a location aspiration, which is the Fount of Tumarani knowledge, which is all about wanting to explore the world and immerse themselves in the culture. There's a deviance aspiration, seeker of secrets, which is all about snooping and having a ravenous appetite to know about your neighbors and get the hot gossip. There's a popularity aspiration, discerning dweller, which is all about wanting to be a great tenant and a great neighbor too. And then there is the fortune aspiration, which is 5-star property owner, and this sim wants to be the best property owner the world has ever seen. So I could see me doing 3 of them. I'm not sure. I'm not really into the deviance aspirations myself, but I'll have to check it out. And there are 5 new traits, of course, which we already knew from the blog post. Same with the aspirations, but they're cringe, generous, nosy, child of the village, and there's an elder specific one, wise. You can assign wise if you create an elder sim, but it could be earned when they age up. It's possible to happen if the sim had level 10 of logic skill or if they had the genius trait, but if you have growing together, you can also get it through gameplay, through like the self-discovery options. So then they moved on to show a lot of the build mode items. So there's a new hot tub with a faux rock facade, a new grill, which was a reward for one of the 2 new social events. That one is the reward for a good potluck. There's some new mailboxes, which was, single home, duplex, or multiplex, and for an apartment. So there's different versions of them. Marbles and hopscotch. The only children can play with the marbles, but anyone can collect them. And hopscotch primarily is for children, but teens and up can use. They had the for rent sign, and then they showed a whole bunch of stuff inside. I'm just sort of discussing it, but you'll have seen it running in the background too. So for the for rent signs, there's some for the wall and some for the ground. And also the new no shoes from Snowy Escape has moved to base game. So you can set it on the shoe rack, which you could already do if you had Snowy Escape. But there's also a new sign for the for rent pack. And they also showed like a bunch of new things like new awnings, doors, rugs, curtains, something that couldn't work like a curtain rod, but wasn't actually curtain rod. The pressure cookers and kettles. There's some new colors being added to base game appliances. I think the high-end ones, to be honest, so that they now match like the new pressure cookers and kettles, but also like the ice cream maker and popcorn maker from, the respective stuff packs that they come with. You can also boil water in the microwave in addition to using the kettle. They showed the new foods. A mini fridge, another narrow dishwasher but needs a full counter, the squat toilets, a toddler potty, new plants. There's the water heater, air conditioner, electrical fuse box, solar water heater, and radiator. The water heater and electrical fuse box have gameplay associated with them for any lot, the rental, residential, or just regular residential. And then also the air conditioner and the radiator have some functionality if you own seasons. But if you don't want functional ones, they have decorative versions, so then you don't have that functionality in place. There's a pool floaty, which is a reward for the other social event, a pool party. They also showed furniture, which was based around some different woods and some plastic chairs, which there was a couple of grungy versions from like sitting outside that they would look dirty, new kitchen counters and more, plus some dingy decals to make things look grungy and lived in. There's a lot of build by stuff, so they showed it very quickly. Anyways, then they moved on to talk about the residential rentals. So they showed from the map view some existing residential rentals. So they look a little different. They pop out kind of different, and then you can choose them. And note that you don't just have apartments with them. You can have duplexes, townhomes, in-law suites, and single room rentals. They then showed how the tool worked using the peak hearth, which is the Pancakes home, but it was placed in Newcrest. And then they did show originally that there's like the limit of the 6, because they did 6 and then there was no more ability to add more, but then they must have used a dev cheat to essentially increase that. But the actual cheat was shown in the blog post, and it's bb.increase rental unit cap on or off to get that on or off. They also stated that there was a save limit, which was mentioned in the blog post also, but they said it was 100. The blog post said 99, not really much different. And note that Rebecca said that she tried the limit and she didn't recommend it. So essentially it doesn't work. It probably becomes too unstable would be my guess. Rating will depend on what's in the unit, but there's nothing required. There had some things that were suggested to help boost the rating, but you don't need to have them. So essentially you can just rent it empty, and then your tenants are supposed to bring their own things. And they also mentioned the limitations. You can't build on Sulani water lots, penthouses, or in vacation worlds, which was also already mentioned in the blog post, which I did a video about already. Note, if you want to start over after having assigned things, you can essentially assign all the rooms to one unit, like in one motion, and then you can start over. So it's really easy to kind of reset it and do it over again if you realize that you kind of messed everything up. So, and they did comment that the tool could have been quite complicated, but that they thought that the team did a really good job of making it easy to use, and it did look like it was pretty easy to use. So I agree that it seems pretty easy to use. So then they showed the world, which has 2 neighborhoods, which we already knew from the leaked map. And also, I don't know if that was in the blog post, but there are 2 neighborhoods. So the one neighborhood is Morensong, which is a bustling downtown busy city with 4 lots, which includes the one that starts empty, the 40 by 30, but they had their live stream family on it. So in the video, it looks like that lot is occupied, because it is, but it normally starts empty. So it has a national park, a residential rental lot, which has 1 pre-made family who owns the lot, and 1 empty apartment or 1 empty unit, and then also a regular residential starter home. And this is also where the night market is, which seemed to start at 6 p.m. And there is a rabbit hole temple there. And then the other neighborhood is Ko Sampa. It's a more relaxed neighborhood with 2 empty lots, a lounge, which had the new hot tub in it, a regular residential lot with a pre-made family, and another residential rental with 3 units, one of which is empty, and the other 2 are occupied by the pre-made family from the gameplay trailer. So essentially like the one family, and then like the auntie is in the other one. This world has the Tiger Sanctuary, which is a rabbit hole, which we already knew from the blog post. Again, a lot of the stuff, there was new stuff, but there was some stuff that they essentially said that was from previous blog posts. So, and I heard third hand that the lots in this particular pack were built by EA and not by any of the game changers. So, which for me, I'm fine, because I actually feel better editing the EA lots than I do the game changer lots. So, but I know a lot of people who maybe don't want to have to edit maybe don't like that as much, but for me that's fine. So then they showed some gameplay, and they essentially used their live stream family and the lot that they had there. So there are a few things that will pull Sims out of their units and into the common space. So they have essentially tweaked the autonomy so that Sims are more likely to use exercise equipment, grills, do gardening, use laundry if you have laundry day, and actually use the laundry if they're like in like the public space, the common space. So they also mentioned that there's a mold ghost that had some interesting interactions for gardening, but that they didn't have any luck getting a mold ghost during their practice run, so they didn't even bother trying with this particular walkthrough. But that's something to explore yourself when you get the pack. So the lot that they had built had the main home, and then they had 2 rental units, which both had a bedroom and a bathroom, and the living room and the kitchen were shared space, essentially common area plus the outside area. So they themselves really just had their bedrooms and their bathroom. So, but one thing they did note was that coming to base game is the ability to switch to households by selecting on the door. They showed the door, I don't know if it would work just with the lot itself if it was for an actual residential lot, because it isn't just for these types of lots. It's for any lot, and versus having to go to Manage Worlds. So you can still go to Manage Worlds, but you don't have to. You can do it from essentially Live mode, and switch. They then showed renting out the third unit. The second unit in this particular house was already rented out by the male Sim's father. So they showed the fill vacancy screen, and then they had various different things in terms of like the rating. But one of the things with the rating is the maintenance, but that starts poor, and you essentially develop that through gameplay, was what they mentioned. Or they said it started poor, so and essentially it seemed like that would be something that would go up during gameplay. They showed some of the rules you can activate, so they were no noise, no loud noises, maximum occupancy, but infants don't count towards that, no trash overload, no ghosts, and they thought there was a no pets rule, but they were only playing with base game and the for rent pack, so it wouldn't show. It would be something that you would see when you had the cats and dogs pack, and maybe also the horse ranch pack, for that matter, because, I mean, they're also considered pets, I think. Anyways, so unless there's a specific no horse rule, which would make some sense. So there have been some Sims added with the pack that will be available to rent out too. So you will always have that option as well as other ones, but you can rent to Sims who aren't already living in the world. So when you're a landlord and renting out and you get the thing up to choose who to rent to, it will only be Sims who aren't already in the world who you can do that with. But if you're, say, playing with like various households, you would just move them into the unit. Like, so say you have a family and you want, I'm just saying this, they didn't say this, but I would think that if you have a family and you want someone who's in your family that's living elsewhere to move into one of your units, you would just physically move them in. And I don't think there's anything, you just move them in like you would normally with any type of moving ability in the game. It's only when you're the landlord that you look and have these rules and stuff like that. So they did show that there is an option there to unjustly evict, which can change to justly evict if the tenant is breaking the rules. So it would be one or the other. If you unjustly evict, you may be subject to fines. And that also would be like if it's during the lease period. I think at the end of the lease period, you can evict and it's not considered unjustly. But they didn't really talk about that. But that was the impression I got, probably from something I'd seen previously. So they also showed the Rabbit Hole Temple that's in the Mornsong neighborhood. There's a children's play area in the neighborhood area, probably because the park is a national park, which I'll be changing to a regular park because I don't like national parks. And they also showed the night market area. They show a rabbit hole building, that's a fish market where you can buy food. So in the night market, it seems to light up at night. It showed it lighting up at night. It seemed to start at 6 p.m., but it wasn't actually that dark at 6 p.m., but as it got darker, it got brighter, but it did light up at 6 p.m. So there's also a craft stall, and you can buy various things there, including 2 different tassels, which are collectibles you can find throughout the world through various means. And as you discover them, you unlock lore. And then when you complete the collection, you unlock an item. You can also get marbles there, which is the second collection that comes with the pack. So there's essentially 2 collections that come with the pack, these tassels and marbles. And there's also food stalls there. There's 3 food stalls that I noticed. There's a vegetarian one. There's a drinks and desserts, which is 1 stall. And then there's non-vegetarian, so you can buy food from those stalls. They didn't mention that you had to eat the food to learn the food, so I kind of think you don't, but they didn't mention one way or the other. So after they showed that, they traveled to the Ho Sampa neighborhood, where they went into the lounge lot, because it's like the community lot there. So the Tiger Sanctuary, which is a rabbit hole, which we knew from the blog post, is close to the lounge. It's not open at night, but you can sneak in. But if you get caught, you may get banned. I don't know if it's a permanent ban, but they did mention that they had been caught on previous events. They didn't actually happen to get caught this time. However, if you come during the day, you can just visit it regularly, and you can also support the sanctuary. You can experience fun and interesting stories when you're visiting, and if you support the sanctuary, you may be able to bring home something adorable. I expect it was the toy tiger that was briefly shown but not talked about when they showed the build buy items. They got a pop-up for sneaking in, and they had a choice of 2 options, and this is where they didn't actually get caught. They were successful, but they got some animal crackers into the Sims personal inventory, and you could see some glowing eyes at night, and that was like the tigers. So anyways, they show some nosy interactions at the lounge, and they also showed that there was a cave in the neighborhood that you can explore and learn more lore. They mentioned lore a lot, so it seems like there's a lot of lore associated with this pack. They then showed the breaking in, which is not the same as burglars. It's something that you initiate as your sim and not initiated by other sims or unblight sims. So if you're successful in breaking in, there will be a timed event that happens, and during that timed event your sim can snoop and may learn a secret about the sim who lives on the lot. They showed an example of the secret, and there was a little bit more shared afterwards by some Guru Nova about that. However, if you don't leave before the break-in event ends, your sim will, I wasn't sure. I think they will get caught, and they might get like into a fight with the people because they won't be very happy that they'll be there. So they left before the event ended, but they, as I said, showed that example. And it's not just the residential rentals that you can break into. You can break into regular residential lots too. And again, this is not burglars. This is really for snooping. However, if your sim is a kleptomaniac, they could steal something in that case, but it's still not burglars. And they had already mentioned that in the blog post, that burglars are something separate. You know, I still think they're going to come at some point, but this is not it. And with that secret, you can blackmail them. It will hit your relationship, but you can earn some money, or you can keep the secret, which can help boost the relationship. Then, as I said, they returned home before the break-in event ended, so we had no fighting going on with that. So once they got home, they showed more gameplay things, including the pressure cooker and the kettle. The pressure cooker is something that you prepare the food, you put it in, and then you leave it to cook, like a real pressure cooker. And the kettle you turn on to boil, and then you can leave it. And then once it's boiled, you go back and you make your tea. And they had various options of tea, including like a cute unicorn. I don't remember. It was a big long one, but that was what they chose to make. But you can make tea or coffee. They just chose tea, so they showed those options. So they showed the mold, of course, because, you know, mold is a big thing, which is optional. You don't need to have mold. So initially they were allergenic mold piles, which seemed to make them dazed, all the Sims in the house, in that area, but they only had the mold on the family unit, like the landlord's unit. So the mold, the lot challenges, and the lot traits are actually per unit and not for the whole rental unit, which is really good. I was happy to see that. But so they cleaned up the mold piles in the kids' bedroom. But, and of course, mold can form if you have the lot challenge on, and it can be on any lot. They said any lot. I don't know if it would be on community lots. They said it can be on any lot, so maybe it can. But you also need to have plumbing be left dirty for it to spawn. So that's where it spawns from. So they had left their shower dirty. And there is also a second lot challenge that is available for regular residential lots. It's called Maintenance Troubles. This is a default challenge on the residential rental lots, so it's just on by, like, it's not a lot challenge. It's just something that regular residential rentals have. They have these maintenance troubles regardless. So you can't turn it on or off for that, but you can opt in to it on a regular residential lot. So for the mold piles, they showed cleaning them initially, but later on they show 2 other ways. You can destroy them with fire because it's Sims, and you know, Sims is something you gotta destroy things with fire. And you can also deploy a mold be gone bomb for 750 simoleons. Now, they actually had a little brief stop in going over the mold because they had a maintenance event occur, which they may have triggered. I don't know. If they did, it wasn't very obvious. It may have just happened. So when a maintenance event happens on these lots, you can hire someone to look after them, and there were 2 options: cheap contractor or expensive contractor, or your sim as the landlord can look after it themselves, i.e. by traveling to the lot or the unit. and or they can leave the tenant to deal with it. So in this case, there was a water event, a water leak event, but they mentioned there being a haunting event, and they mentioned insects too. So I think there probably were also probably some other ones too, but those were the ones that were mentioned. So there essentially are different types of maintenance events. And then once they dealt with that, which they dealt with different ways, you can replace like what's broken, you can fix it. There were water piles, so they were mopping them up. So when you were actually dealing with it yourself, you went and did that. And they did a mixture of replacing the water heater had broken, and they repaired the shower that had broken. So they did both kind of things. But after that, after the maintenance event ended, they went back to their home lot and they showed using the dev cheats the toxic mold pile, which is when it gets a bit deadly. But the fact that they had to use the dev cheat to get to that level, and they had the mold right from the beginning. Mind you, they were traveling around a bit, so that probably didn't help. It made me think it takes a little while to get to that stage. But that's where they demonstrated the getting rid of the mold with the fire. And in that case, if you do use the fire, you have to let the fire burn long enough to get rid of the mold. And then you would put it out. And of course, they got the fear of fire, which is, I think, why they're fixing, the fact that Sims are supposed to not start as many fires cooking if they have the fear of fire. Probably, I'm guessing, because of this, to be quite honest. And though it was a bug report, but I'm thinking that's why they, looked into that and prioritized fixing that particular one. And then once they did that, that only got rid of the one mold pile, but it didn't get rid of the rest of the mold. So then they did deploy that, the Mold Be Gone bomb for 750 simoleons, and they got rid of the rest of it. But the interesting thing is, in like the trailer and like the mold video, it looked like, I thought it was a exterminator or whatever who was doing this stuff. But it was actually just the sim put the whole hazmat type outfit on and got rid of it themselves. So I don't know if that's going to be the same way with the insects, that you're going to do a similar thing with insects, or if you could hire someone to get rid of it, because they didn't show insects, they just showed the mold. So also some early access content went live after the walkthrough. At the time I'm recording it was yesterday, but that walkthrough would only be base game and for rent, and it was an early version, so there could be some differences when it comes out next week. So if like there's a few bugs, it's possible they could be fixed or whatnot, because it was an early version and not the final version that's going to be releasing. So as I mentioned, there were some things coming to the base game update. So there were the bug fixes from the laundry list, which I did a separate video yesterday about that. So in addition to those bug fixes, there seemed like there were some small quality of sim life changes coming in the base game update. So the first thing that I saw in a tweet afterwards, not in the live stream, was that sinks can be assigned as being bathroom, kitchen, or all, which I can show the tweet from that on there. So that's good. And I'm kind of wondering if that's why they're fixing, or how they're fixing, Sims using the wrong sink to wash the dishes. They also showed in the live stream the ability to switch to a different household from live mode on the apartment or regular residential lot too. And also that we're getting more swatches. It looked like it was only for the expensive base game, fridge, stove, and microwave. I think it's Snapple or whatever it is, so that they'll match the new appliance and existing ice cream maker, popcorn maker, which the latter two require cool kitchen or movie stuff respectively. And also the Snowy Escape ability to remove shoes is going to base game. So that also it'll be something that is available for rent. And honestly, as a Canadian, I remove my shoes when I go in the house too. So I don't think it's a strictly Japanese, Southeast Asian thing. I think there's lots of places in the world that do that, just maybe not as much in the States. So that's kind of good. I honestly don't use it in the game because I find my Sims get playful because they broke the rules, and I don't really like my Sims getting playful because of the fact that they can die from that. Anyways, so let's now touch on some of the tweets. Some just reiterated what was in the live stream, but some things were kind of new. So one of the tweets from SimGuru Nova was that there was actually a lot more gameplay. It couldn't actually be shown in the playthrough that they showed because it happens naturally over time. So more time was required. It wouldn't have happened just in one sort of short play through. Because, I mean, there was only a short portion where they were actually playing because they were showing the create a sim and the build, buy stuff and the world. And they only really showed the gameplay for a bit. And yes, they emphasized the mole, but that's probably because it's one that's easier to show during the gameplay session because they could, like, trigger it more easily, whereas some of the other things probably couldn't be shown as easily. And they were also under time constraints. So there was also someone asked about how many properties can a property owner, i.e. your played sim, can own, and can they own a different lot from a separate world they're not residing in. So the response there was, it depends on how many they can afford to purchase. So it strikes me that there's no real limits. The limits is how many they can afford, and they can live anywhere while owning a residential rental, on the lot, in a unit, or off the lot in another world altogether. They can even be a tenant in another residential rental while owning a different one of their own, which I found kind of interesting. Didn't really think about it, but that makes a lot of sense. So I'll probably be trying that a little bit because in my Let's Play, I want to be at least doing the 3 of the 4 aspirations, and one of them requires you to be a tenant. From the sounds of it, it required you to be a tenant, a good tenant. So, but the other one requires you to own. So I was like thinking I'd have to do the one and then do the other, but it looks like you can do them both at the same time. So yay for that. Then with respect to like the number of the secrets, they showed the funny one with the Grim Reaper, which is showing here, but it was also in the live stream. So someone asked if there were a lot of secrets, and Simguru Nova replied, there are quite a few, a little over 30 or so to discover, with some additional ones being unique to certain special sims. And there's a limit of how many secrets each sim can have, so you need to do a lot of snooping, eavesdropping to find them all. So, the 30 seems like quite a lot since you have to snoop to find them, versus like the person was mentioning, the social bunny messages. They're a lot easier to get to. It doesn't require actually breaking in and snooping. I don't know if you can snoop without breaking in. That's just how they showed it. So again, they had mentioned this, but they're the blackmailing versus keeping secrets. So snooping gives you bits of information, and you can tell sims you have them for blackmail purposes or confide in them that you're keeping their secret. And so Simguru Nova replied, yep, blackmailing nets simoleons, but relationship tanks. Keeping secrets is a good way to build relationships through slightly nefarious means, of course, because you're still keeping secrets anyways, and snooping to get them. So essentially, Simguru Nova had said that she had written the one that was shown there, but then she also did a shout out to Little Red R3D, the lore queen herself, who also wrote a bunch of secrets, as well as Toomerang truths you can learn from the pre-made Toomerang sims. And so that's something you can learn from the pre-mades. So that seems kind of interesting. So one final tweet that I saw, someone asked whether you can actually rent an apartment, because there was no gameplay shown as a tenant, only a landlord. And yes, you can play it as a tenant. And I think that's been asked before and answered before, but yeah, they are definitely emphasizing the like being a landlord in the gameplay trailer and in this. But yes, they've mentioned before that you can play as a tenant. You don't need to play as a landlord. So they were just confirming that again in case you also were wondering about that. So let me know if you're excited after seeing what's coming in the pack, or if there's anything in the base game update that is of interest to you. I think for me, the sync thing is probably going to be one of my favorite things coming to base game, but it's not really a very big base game update, I'd have to say, compared to some of the updates we get before expansions. And I'm just hoping that it's not going to be overly buggy because it's not that big. But anyways, so I'd love to know what your thoughts are on this in a comment down below. But that's going to be it for this video. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!